That's one of the great.
All right, good evening. I'd like to call the order the McKinney SAR.
We can't hear you.
And we have some members joining us via Zoom, one of which is Don Bass, who will lead us in our invocation. Please stand.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, in whom we live and move and have our being, we humbly pray you so to guide and govern us by the Holy Spirit, that in the work and activities of the sons of the American Revolution, we may never forget you, but remember that we are walking in your sight through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Now, if you'd please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the pledge to the Texas flag, which we live by, our treasurer Peter Ford.
I pledge allegiance to the flag one day under God, one and indivisible.
And the pledge of the SAR philosophy of allegiance, please. Yes.
We who by their sacrifices the United States of America. We affirm by faith principles of liberty and the Constitution of the Republic. Always
Please be seated. And at this time, we'll have our self introductions and we'll pass around the microphones.
Foster Reedy, Secretary. Online, we've got John Greer, Don Babbs, Kerry Barnett, Bill Hurst, and Pete McClellan.
Tom Wilson, I'm the Vice President of Programs here, and I also have another hat on. I'm the District 11 Vice President for Texas.
And former president.
Oh, and former President.
And Michael Washer.
Greg, McKinney, the wife, George.
Al Lacy, Fresco, flag representative. Ray Hart is a member here of McKinney and Edmund Farrell. Gustav Seligmann, I'm the speaker, and will be introduced later.
I'm his driver.
Now we're getting down to I'm Robert Clark, I'm a member of the McKinney Fire Department, and I was asked to be here to receive an award tonight.
Hi, Wes Brown, you're receiving an award as well. Thank you.
I'm Joe Chenoweth, member of this chapter, and I live in Allen.
Bill Watts, member of Dallas, so McKinney, Eastport, Edmund Terrell, and
Got too many, you can't remember.
Ed Wilson, member of the chapter, and Edmund Terrell. Keon Holden, member of the chapter, also Edmund Terrell, and state genealogist. Forrest Morgan, expect the work being worked on now. And my wife, Sammy, we live in the house.
Nathan White, former President General, my wife Wanda, and Dr. Seligmann. I heard somebody once say one time that we're glad to be here. I said my wife drove, said I got the whole of the wheel.
And my dinner partner tonight is Wanda White. My name is Jim Akers. I'm a member here at McKinney, and I'm president of the chapter.
I'm Rich Bonaparte, registrar, my wife Lynn, member of the team.
Peter Ford, treasurer, McKinney chapter.
Live in Frisco, no way up Arrow, keeps me on track going home.
Right, that's true. So I'm Mark, I'm the current president, still trying to learn the ropes. So, all right, so for our program this evening, Tom, you. Yep. You bet, sir. Thanks, sir. Yep.
Okay. First thing we have here for the program, which we've been doing now for several months, is we have a historical moment. Okay, and this was provided by John Greer, who's on Zoom here tonight. And the one that I picked there, in fact, John, you owe me another one. So this is the last one I got, so I think I'll remind you of that now. Anyway, so he gave me one on the American wars, and I first looked at it and thought, well, but then I realized, you know, there's some really good stuff in this. And it's basically, you know, the numbers, okay, sort of like by the numbers. And I want you to think about these numbers as we talk about it. The first war that's listed here is the Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1787. The number of participants, 395,000. Deaths in service, 4,000. And the last veteran that died was named Daniel F. Bateman. And how old do you think he was?
101.
Got 96, 101, 103.
110.
110? Who's 110? Have you seen my notes? He was 109. He died. So I think good hearty stock is what I think about him. He survived all that. The next one, the War of 1812, which was fought between 1812 and 1814. Number of participants was 536,000. Deaths in the service was 2,000. The last veteran was Hiram Cronk. He died May 13th, 1905 at the age of, anybody?
98.
98. Any other? 105. There's a trend here if you haven't noticed. Okay. So the next one we had listed on here was the Mexican-American War, or sorry, the Mexican War. Participants, 130,000. Deaths in service were 13,000, and the last veteran to die died in 1928. Don't have his age on that. Civil War. Participants, 2,213,000. Deaths in the service, 364,000. The last Confederate veteran died in December of 1959. That can't be right. Yes, maybe it is. It's 1959. That gives you a hint that how old do you think he was?
He was on Groucho Marx in Baker's Life.
Well, how old was he there?
I think he was 104 when he died.
Oh, that's too low. It says on here 117. Okay, well, I'm just reading this stuff.
He was from Texas, right?
I don't know. It doesn't say where he was from.
Where he from? South Carolina. Yeah, on the side.
The last veteran, the Union veteran to die, died in August of 1956, and he was 109. Okay, World War I. Participants, 4,444,000. Number of deaths, 131,000. Living veterans in 1965, there were over 2,200,000. 2 million, over 2 million living veterans in 1965. The last veteran from World War I died in February of 2011 at the age of 110. Okay, World War II. World War II, 16,535,000. Deaths for 409,000. And then in the Korean conflict, participants were, I'm sorry, did I say 6 million? Wait a minute. Did I say 6 million? Oh, I said it right. Okay, I thought I said it wrong. Okay. Korean conflict participants, 6,807,000, deaths 54,000. So when you start adding all of this up, a lot of veterans that gave their lives for this country. I didn't add it up, but if you just start thinking about it, I may have to do that, and I'll tell you what the number was next time. So anyway, that's our historical moment. Think about that every once in a while. Number of people and that died protecting our freedoms. Okay, so now up, I'm very proud to introduce Professor Dr. Gus Seligmann. Dr. Seligmann is recently retired from the history department at the University of North Texas after teaching there for 55 years out of a total teaching career of 60 years. His areas of specialization were the history of U.S. political parties, the history of presidential election, the American constitutional history. He regularly taught all levels with the teaching various aspects of U.S. history. He is also the author of several articles on the economy and politics of the 20th century New Mexico. Despite his retirement, he remains active, currently serving as the chair of the Executive Council of the UNT Military History Center and is currently the president of the Historical Society of New Mexico. Without further ado, we'll turn it over to Dr. Seligmann.
Where do you guys want me to be for the?
Right here.
Right here. But not see the. I can't talk.
You're in. Oh, I thought you said you wanted a seat, no?
Oh, I usually sit on a table.
Well, you can sit on the table. Well, you're good. Let's see here.
I'm okay this way.
Okay, I'm gonna adjust real.
Yeah, let's do mine.
You did it perfect.
Well, let me get around.
Keep that out of the way. Out of that. That's what's good.
But this way, okay.
Yeah, okay, now hold on.
Now we're functioning.
Let's see.
You guys look like a fairly sober, solid group, et cetera. So I'm polling on this. I had back surgery a while back. And if my wife weren't here, I'd take credit for this idea, but it was actually she thinks I should hit the pawn shops and see if I can find a rodeo belt buckle. That's sticking right here. Does that strike any of you guys as a good idea?
One that says bull riding.
Bull riding. I was thinking bull riding, something like that. Is there anybody here with a background in higher mathematics? An engineer, an accountant, somebody like that? Good. I'm gonna call on you in a minute.
He's an engineer too, by the way.
As a historian, numbers are not my strong suit, although as a historian of political campaigns, numbers are my strong suit. Totaling them, this sort of thing. But let's start with a little quiz. If I were to ask you, what is arguably the most famous short political speech in American history, what would your answer be? Any argument? That's my choice too. How does it start out? 4 years ago. Now, this is the math. The Gettysburg Address was given in 1863. If you subtract 7, which is 87, what number do you come up with?
Whoa.
1770. Ah, good. I knew there'd be a mathematician in the audience. What else happened in 1776? What's Lincoln talking about? Conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition. What are we talking? What's Lincoln referring to there? Declaration of Independence. Now, I've never given this on a really cloudy day. I might hesitate to if there were lightning around, but it's a really clear day, so I'll sort of bring it. Lincoln was wrong. In 1776, there was really no such thing as the United States of America. There were colonies. There actually wasn't much of a thing on this side of the Atlantic. There weren't very many people who looked on themselves as Americans. The American Revolution, I hate to tell you guys this, was not fought by Americans. It was fought by Virginians, by New Yorkers, by Pennsylvanians, by Carolinians, this sort of thing. Actually, if you wanted to find somebody who looked on us as Americans, you were much more likely to find them in England than you were in on this side of the Atlantic. They looked on us as Americans. They saw a significant. Now, when I say they, believe me, I'm not talking about 80%, maybe 8 or 10%, you know, something like that. But to use that great phrase, the chattering classes would be more likely to look on us as Americans than we were. We were citizens of our colony. When Washington showed up at the Continental Congress, he showed up in the uniform of a colonel of the Virginia militia. But then he was given a job. The job he was given wasn't interesting. He became commander. It was interesting in several ways. It was non-existent for one. He became commander of the Continental Army. What is Washington's theater of responsibility? The continent. Maine to Georgia, which is a long way now, but it was a hell of a lot longer in the 1770s. The point I'm making is that to do his job, Washington could not afford to think as a Virginian. He had to think in continental terms. He had that was his area of responsibility. That was also the area of responsibility of his staff. And his staff members have interesting names. Names like Alexander Hamilton. And incidentally, if you haven't seen the musical, Karen and I were in New York for a meeting before COVID, and we had to make a choice. We like the theater. We could go to one play. We could go to Hamilton. Another one, a guy named James Madison. Hamilton at age 22 was a lieutenant colonel. Madison was a third one, a man who I'll say more about, Gouverneur Morris. Gouverneur Morris is actually one of my sort of heroes. Not because of anything, well, because of who he was. He had one leg. He had a wooden leg. How he got that wooden leg was a matter of some dispute. He said there had been a carriage accident that had been badly set and had to be amputated. His enemies said he broke it jumping out of a second-story window when a husband was coming in a first-story door. The truth is somewhere in between, but this was an age in which men wore small clothes. What were called small clothes. You've seen the pictures, the knickers that end right above the knee, etc. Gouverneur Morris had color-coded wooden legs. He had a black wooden leg that he would wear when he was wearing black. It had a gold band. He had a brown wooden leg that he wore when he was wearing brown. Who could not admire somebody with that much vanity when you get right down to it? To have color-coded prosthetics, I mean, that's really big time there. That's one of the reasons I like him, also like his handwriting. He wrote the Constitution. But let's fast forward for this to the Constitutional Convention. The Constitutional Convention is called because the government under the Articles of Confederation has failed, in simple terms. They did some good. They passed some really major legislation. Government under the Articles won the war. They got and I didn't make that point. I probably shouldn't, but I will. Almost no one involved in the American Revolution referred to it as the American Revolution. It was the cause. But Sons of the American Revolution sounds a whole lot better than Sons of the Cause. I mean, that really doesn't scan well here. And you've got to be aware of those things in the real world. There was a fear among people like Washington and Madison and Hamilton that what they had fought for, what they had sacrificed for, that the cause was going to come to no good end because of the shortcomings and failures of the government under the Articles of Confederation. That was the argument that Madison used with Washington, to get Washington to agree to come to Philadelphia for the Constitutional Convention. Washington's a rarity among American presidents. He really meant it when he said he didn't want to be the president. There's a marvelous story about George III, remember him, the king? He's having his portrait painted by an American, and this is after the Battle of Yorktown, but before the war is over. There's that 2-year gap from 1781 to 83. And since the painter Benjamin West was an American, George III assumed that he knew everything about America, etc. So he asked West, what does Washington intend to do when the war is over? And West's answer was, he intends to return to his plantation and farm. And George III, who has gotten a bad rap on this side of the Atlantic, he lived too long, frankly. And he died before he went crazy. He would have been looked on as a far better king. But he did understand power. And George III's comment to Benjamin West is really an interesting. If he does serve, he is surely the greatest man of this age. What does Washington do? He surrenders his sword, he turns over the army to Congress, he goes back to Mount Vernon to farm. It took a lot of work to get him to Pennsylvania for the Constitutional Convention. But the fear that the cause would be thwarted, that it would end badly, that all of these sacrifices would have been wasted, was one of the motivating factors that drew Washington back. But the best book on the Constitutional Convention is a book by a historian named Richard Beeman with an interesting title, Plain Honest Men. That title is a quote from Gouverneur Morris, who in his later years was asked what sort of people were at the Constitutional Convention. And his response was they were plain honest men. Not plain. I mean, I don't know how you define Alexander Hamilton or Washington or Franklin or Madison, or for that matter, Gouverneur Morris, how you define them as plain. I mean, that's a different dictionary than the one I use, generally speaking. But that was his phrase to describe it. What we are looking at, in a way, at the Constitutional Convention is what came to be known in the 1960s as a generation gap. We're looking at two generations. We're looking at a generation of men, and I'm sorry, I don't I didn't create it, I just lecture on the past. There were, to speak of, no founding mothers. We're dealing with, well, maybe Abigail Adams. She comes close, and she's a really cool chick, frankly. One of my favorites. How many of you have heard of Patrick Henry? How many know the most important political office Patrick Henry ever held? Governor of Virginia. Not counting the last several, name another governor of Virginia, but if you're from Virginia, you can't play this game. Get the point I'm making? Why is that the highest political office? I mean, Jefferson knew they were going to have to go up against, that Madison was going to have to go up against Patrick Henry in Virginia over ratifying the Constitution. And Jefferson's comment was he thought the only thing that would really, the only way to handle Patrick Henry was for him to die. He was that sort of a political force. He was a genuine force of nature in his oratory, but he was never anything above governor of Virginia. Why? The state was the biggest political stage you could act on prior to the Constitutional Convention. There wasn't anything any bigger of any significance. That was where the top talent was. Not always, but then again, you know, that sometimes the undeserving others make it to the top. By that I mean anybody that I didn't vote for that wins an election falls in the category of undeserving others. What came together was this attempt to salvage the cause. What we look on this period now, and you read the documents, this sort of thing, you see a lot of fear in the country that we're going to break up into maybe 3 separate federations: New England, the Middle States, and the South. You look at it from the perspective of now, it looks like pure foolishness. That wasn't going to happen. Why do we know it wasn't going to happen? Because it didn't happen. But if you looked at it then, people saw it as a reality. And if that occurred, what they had fought for in the war would have been lost. That somehow they would not, the cause would have failed. Beeman in his book, and here I'm frankly stealing, from it, but at least I acknowledge it, so it's not out and out plagiarism. Says there are three crucial figures in the Constitutional Convention: Washington, Madison, and Franklin. That the senior generation, the generation that got us into the revolution, to a large degree is not there. But if you're thinking, wait a minute, wasn't Franklin in his 80s? How does he qualify as a young man of the revolution? I mean, 80 was old now, it was really old, despite how old the oldest veteran made it. It was really seriously old then, but you could build a very good case. And it's the title of one of the best biographies of Benjamin Franklin. That Franklin is the first American, the first person on this side of the Atlantic of serious significance to begin thinking of himself as an American. He had done several odd things. One, he had moved. He was born in Boston. Next time you go to Boston, you can see his parents' grave on the Freedom Trail. As a teenager, he moved to Philadelphia. You were far more likely, a colonist was far more likely to go, say, from Virginia to England than from Virginia to New York. There was far more movement on an east-west basis than on a north-south basis, but Franklin had lived in two colonies. More importantly, Franklin spent the late 1760s and the early first half of the 1770s in London, where he was the colonial agent, that's spelled lobbyist, where he was the colonial agent for 5 separate colonies simultaneously. The point I am making is that Franklin, by virtue of his experiences and what he was doing in London, in England, had to think in continental terms. Look, well, he was a colonial agent for Georgia and Massachusetts. The economic and political interests of Georgia and Massachusetts were fairly significantly different in the 1770s. He had to keep all of this in mind. Then you have Madison, the father of the Constitution. He was 36. And Washington. Madison was the guy, there's a really good book by a historian. You want to write a really good historian's name down, write down Joseph Ellis. Just about anything he writes is worth reading. And I think I've read almost everything he's written now. I haven't found a bad book yet. And he keeps turning them out on a fairly regular basis. He didn't do the Franklin book. That's another historian, H.W. Brands, who used to teach at UT Austin. I think he may have gone east, but I'm not positive. I meant to look that up and forgot about it. He's another one that's worth reading on just about anything he writes. Madison, well, a book by Joe Ellis is entitled The Quartet. It's Madison, Hamilton, Washington, and probably the most unknown of the major founding fathers, who incidentally was not in Philadelphia, John Jay. Jay was a serious nationalist, as were Madison, Hamilton, and Washington. Washington brought something to the Constitutional Convention that no other American could bring. We fought a war over tyranny, freedom from the tyranny of the king and Parliament. It was really far more Parliament than the king, but Jefferson chose to blame the king for everything in the last part of the Declaration of Independence, which nobody reads now, because it is pretty close to absolutely insignificant now, because it was all temporary, it was all issues of the time. The king has done all of these awful things. in the debates over the Declaration and the congressional debates, almost all of the energy was spent on that part that we pay no attention to now. Things like we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Those just blew through. Nobody paid any attention at all to those because there was a consensus. These were men of the Enlightenment. They believed all of that, all of those things. So why spend time debating them? But to blame George III for slavery, that's stretching it a bit. Since slavery began in 1619, I keep thinking in New Mexico terms, which is 100 years older. I thought once that my last semester, I would teach the U.S. survey from the point of view of the Rio Grande Valley and move it eastward, the way history actually happened. But I never got around to doing that. I think it would have upset my colleagues far more than everything else I did, which upset them enough. Madison set the agenda. He showed up at the meeting with a draft constitution. Now, he came nowhere near getting what he wanted. But he forced the debate on that rather than amend the articles, which in his opinion were unamendable. What Washington brought to the table was he could be trusted. We fought a war against tyranny. Did we want to create a government that would create a tyrant 3,000 miles closer than King George? And the answer to that was a pretty loud no. That was not something we wanted. So why did we trust Washington? He walked away from power. Probability is pretty good that if Washington wanted to be King George I, he could have been. There was some pressure on him to do that. There was some support for that. Plus another factor, not only was he the leading figure, but there was another factor. He had no direct descendants. That meant when he died, the king would be up for grabs. And all sorts of other ambitious people could see the possibility of moving in, but he walked away from it. The second indispensable man is Ben Franklin. Why Ben? He was the best known American in the world, in simple terms. Better known than Washington even. Known as a scientist primarily, but he was the image of America. He was, when people thought of the prototypical American, Franklin's picture popped up in their mind's eye. Why Madison? Madison set the agenda. Any good political scientist will tell you that whoever sets the agenda tends to control the meeting. It's that simple. And he set the agenda. Now, there was, and as I say, he didn't get what he wanted. He did not want a Senate. He wanted only a House of Representatives, with each state being represented by their population. One of the major debates in America at the time is the debate between big states, small state debate. But don't think you're talking geography. You're talking population. Massachusetts was a big state. North Carolina was a small state. Population was what defined whether you were big or small. The big states wanted a House of Representatives determined by population because they would run the show. Rhode Island, Connecticut, Delaware, these places, they wanted what they had in the Articles of Confederation, which is every state being equal. What they didn't want was what they also got in the Articles of Confederation, which was no major legislation could be passed without unanimity. If you want a formula for non-government, that's the quickest one I can give you. just require something important to be unanimous and you guarantee it won't happen. Other significant people at the time of the convention, Gouverneur Morris, Roger Sherman. But again, Sherman is a little bit older, but Sherman is sort of looked on, he's from Connecticut. He's like Franklin, he was not born into wealth, nor for that matter was Alexander Hamilton. I mean, if Hamilton were alive today as a child, he'd be in child protective services. It was that ugly a childhood. It's really hard to exaggerate what Hamilton came out of by and large. There were major debates. Compromises been argued. The Constitution is a bundle of compromises. Madison later said he thought every other word in the Constitution was a compromise. I think that's an exaggeration. Every third word, something like that. The two major issues, which they resolved well enough, get out of Philadelphia well enough to go to the people and well enough for the people to approve, were of course slavery and the big state, small state controversy, which we see worked out every day in Washington right now. There used to be a saying in DC that in a House of Congress, the other party was the opposition. The enemy was the other house. That's still true to a certain degree. That's still with us and probably will be forever. For those of you who don't like the Electoral College, that'll be with us forever too. If for no better reason than the fact that the people who want to change it are the people who have lost the last election, which pretty much by definition says they're not going to get what they want, since the people who won are going to want to keep what got them there. Besides that, if you were to ask me for, do you have a better suggestion? My answer would be no. Not by and large, I don't come up with bad reasons. I can argue both sides about any position you want on the Electoral College and agree with myself on all of them. And on that, I think I'll probably hang it up and see if you guys got any good questions.
Throwing out.
Fire away.
Yeah, you mentioned before the Continental Congress that the governors had the high authority. So after that, was the governor's power greatly diminished, or did they just have an equal rival at that point?
Obviously, the presidency took over as the biggest political stage you could play on. They remain governors. Well, we did something in the Constitution that any decent political theorist will tell you is impossible. We divided sovereignty. By definition, sovereignty cannot be divided. The government either is sovereign or it isn't sovereign. We divided it. Happily, there were no professional political scientists at the Constitutional Convention to tell them you can't do this sort of thing. We have some areas in which states are absolutely sovereign. What used to be, well, I think still is referred to as police power. Criminal law, until fairly recently, has been almost, by fairly recently, I mean the last half century, has been pretty much exclusively the power of the state. Had Oswald lived to be tried in Dallas, he would have been tried in state court. Murder was not a federal offense, in simple terms. Now, to murder a political official now is a federal offense. But that's been since 63. Other things, obviously, and they are clearly constitutional, foreign affairs, that sort of thing. The national government is sovereign in that. So the point I'm making is there's still a governor of a state, even a little bitty one, is still a fairly important position with a lot of power. For good or evil, take your pick. And again, anybody I didn't vote for, they fall into the evil category, and so on. But that's the best I can do is to split it out like that by splitting sovereignty. And I do not consider myself, incidentally, a political theorist, although I read 18th century political theory for fun, which is admittedly a weird hobby. Actually, before I married Karen, I would fly by myself to places. And my hearing problem is such that I can't use hearing aids on the plane, so I can't talk to anybody. So I don't want anybody to sit next to me and talk. So the device I hit on to guarantee that no one would talk to me was to read the Federalist, on the theory that if you're sitting there with the Federalist, no one is going to start a conversation with you, because obviously you are so nerdy as to be beyond rational belief. So after I read the Federalist 2 or 3 times through and through, I thought that was pretty. You know, those guys in graduate school that told me I needed to read this book were right. And I'm sorry it took me this long to finally follow up. So for a couple of semesters, I offered a PhD level graduate class on the Federalist, where all of my students had to read the Federalist. And everyone but one liked it. I had one weird evaluation. A person complained that we spent too much time talking about 18th century political theory. And I thought, what the hell did you think you were getting into when you signed up for a class on 18th century political theory? I mean, it sort of follows logically that we're going to drop in on it every now and again, just, you know, just for the fun of it, you know, not to stay very long, but students are weird. I suppose I was when I was a student. Next question. I managed to avoid that. One of the things I did when I was doing this before students, we play a game in the upper division class called press conference. I was the newsmaker. They were the media. They could ask me any question they wanted, and I had to answer it. And I could not lie. I could evade. I could misinterpret. I could walk around the question. I could do all of those things, but I couldn't just out and out lie. That was a really great game. And they could ask all the follow-up questions they wanted. And I absolutely had to answer. And every semester somebody asked me, well, why can't you lie? It's all the fun out of the game. Once you introduce lying, then all you have to do is remember the last one you told. That requires no particular skill at all. This game, you got to be on your toes all of the time, etc. So, you guys are the media, and believe me, I can talk around it. Any others? Hang it up there.
That was great. Thank you, sir. We have something for you here.
But I'll settle for okay.
We have your certificate of appreciation here with the supporting us with the name of the program you gave to us. We really appreciate it. One thing that happens, there are people in here that will go back and next thing you know, your phone will be ringing, people from, both
what-
the SAR and the DAR.
Well, I've talked to the McKinney DA.
Oh, you have? Okay, you've heard him before. Okay.
Yeah, I think,
So maybe that's where I got your name. Probably more than likely, there's a
I
connection.
think I did this for the DAR, really cool place right by the cemetery.
Yep, that was it.
Yeah.
When are you going to make your application for the SAR?
Did I hear you say a donation?
No, SA. You want to know if you apply to the SARs?
I can.
These two.
My family came from another revolution, the German revolutions of 1848, where they were on the losing side. Hence, we're here. That also brought such cool names as Bush, Anheuser, Blitz, Pabst. All of these names are part of the fallout from that revolution. Actually, my daughter is a member of the DAR from her mother's side. But there's just no hope with her dad. My grandfather was born in Berlin.
Oh, good.
But my grandmother's family were 40 acres who came to New Orleans, went up the river to St. Louis, stayed there a while, realized they couldn't make it. He couldn't make it at his profession. He was a brewer. Came back down. You know, you can't make it as a brewer in St. Louis. That's something in financial skills. Came back down the river to New Orleans, traveled by boat to Galveston, from Galveston to San Antonio. Then my great grandmother in 1852 came by stage from San Antonio to El Paso. She was a 14-year-old orphan. And is referred to as the first European woman to travel by that stage route. We've been in New Mexico ever since, except for me. Well, actually, others too. No, I guess I'm the only. No, I'm not the only one in my generation. I got a cousin that lives in Arizona, but everybody else is in southern New Mexico. The unglamorous part of the state. At any rate, I can't tell my child.
Do you prefer red or green?
Yes.
Here you go. Here you go. Over here. It's
Okay. Okay, that's the official.
He is. He's.
Wait a minute. Oh, I don't know. Okay. They're straight. I'm really worried about my glasses.
Oh.
My wife says I look like a grasshopper with my glasses.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now for any announcements or old business, if anybody has any announcements or old business? Yes, sir.
It's, Jill Holmes going to do something? No. I said that. Please.
Microphone.
Mr. Holden going to be at a fabulous group meeting with the United States Decathlon, academic decathlon. And I was there as Ben Franklin. We had a nice showcase of tables, and TL was helping me do that. And I appreciate your help, this certificate, appreciation for your help. Thank you. That was a lot of fun. We had almost 1,000 people there. 56 states were represented from across the United States. And we were able to pass out, but we had over 500 people sign the Declaration of Independence. We gave over 500 certificates advertising our youth program. I think we had a pretty good day and we reached a lot of people, but I appreciate his help. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
He said 56 states. How did he come up with that?
Good question.
50 states and 6 territories. So these were students from represented all over.
We actually had people from what's the 3 islands in the Caribbean? Croix, was it St. Croix, St. Thomas?
St. John's.
They were represented there as one of our protectorates. Puerto Rico was there. So, you know.
Wow. Right.
Oh, they were not right, they were just doggone smart.
Thank you. Anybody else, any additional business? All right, any new business? Anybody? Well, we gotta go, right? Yep. All right, so now it's time for our awards, and Andy Nelson couldn't be here this evening, so you're gonna handle that, Tom?
I am.
Excellent.
I am.
Thank you.
Let me get my file of stuff here. Now, he called me, or his wife called me at 5 o'clock tonight and said, he's really sick. And he lives down in Plano and he had certificates. That's why I'm a few minutes late.
Okay. Okay, so first up, we have a public service award. And Robert, would you join me up here? Thank you. So I'm gonna do my best on this. You're gonna correct me when I get off. Okay. Basically, we're going to honor him tonight with the Fire Safety Commendation Medal. Robert Clark has been with the McKinney Fire Department for 19 years, and he has held the rank of driver for 11 years. He has served on numerous committees for the department, including the Station Design Committee, for which he helped with the planning and design of Station Number 9, and the Apparatus Committee, for which he helped with the design of the 3 engines, 1 tower truck, and 1 pillar truck. What's a pillar truck? It's the one where you steer from the rear. I'm sure everyone would agree to that, right? Make me feel better. Tell me one person didn't know that one. Okay, there's 2. I'm good.
It's line out on inspection on it.
Oh, it's gonna be a new.
Yeah, it's not here yet. It's still being built.
So we're gonna get to see that. Are you gonna have a report that you like?
Hopefully it'll be here by then. I don't know.
That would be cool. Show the new paper. Okay, so let's see. There's somehow where the cost get. Okay. He is also a member of the fire department improvement team, for which he meets with the department administration and the city manager's office to identify problems and find solutions. He also has served as a proctor for the department's drivers promotion process and as an instructor for ISO training. Tonight, we are recognizing his outstanding firefighter with the Fire Safety Commendation Award. He was nominated for this award by his peers at the McKinney Fire Department for his proposal to acquire thermal imaging cameras for all riding positions on every apparatus in the department. In his proposal, Mr. Clark noted that the department could improve its service to customers and enhance the safety of its firefighters if the community by equipping the personnel of each riding position with a personal thermal imaging camera. The department had been using only the 1 thermal imaging camera per fire apparatus, And while this equipment is accurate and robust, it is also heavy, cumbersome, and expensive. Mr. Clark explained that that with the advancing technology of thermal imaging, it is now possible to equip 10 firefighters with personal thermal imaging cameras for the cost of one of the current units in use. The McKinney Fire Department is currently implementing Mr. Clark's proposal. These new cameras will allow everyone on the scene to know where they are, find an exit, locate a victim, and find the seat of the fire. On behalf of the McKinney chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution, I would like to thank you, Mr. Clark, for this service to our community and to invite him forward to receive this certificate. Okay. Put this down.
And you've got the certificate over there.
Oh, I hear. Okay. So says Robert Clark, McKinney Fire Department, the Fire Combination Award in recognition of accomplishments and our outstanding contributions to protect human life and property by preventing injuries or casualties due to fire. And I think this definitely fits the bill, what he's done. Definitely. Do this. Bye-bye. Okay. That's the perfect. Let's see. I'm doing the next one. Okay, so the next one, basically, I guess, quiz. I can stay over here. I hope one of your names is George. Okay. Okay, so probably remember Wes, he was here and we basically came, let's see, he was one of our American history teachers that we had selected to send forward to stay. And we sent 1, 2, 2 or 3 of them. Right now we're going to these 2. Anyway, so 2, I guess, yeah. So anyway, he was one of them that was sent up there. Well, it turned out at state, he basically came in first place for the middle school teachers in the state of Texas, the Texas Society. Oh, I'll quit talking to you. So we were excited about that, and unfortunately, they only give money to. They take basically the results of all that, and they pick one out of 3 classes. Basically, there were teachers for elementary, middle school, and high school, and for the percent that we're using right now, which somebody around here is trying to get changed, but anyway, that's the way it is. But anyway, I think this is something we would have framed so you can hang in a place of honor. 2 other things. Number 1, you need to give this man an applause because he's a Marine. He was a Marine. So if you would. And the next thing is, the next thing is we were talking a little bit, and he's working on his syllabus or your plans for this next year. Okay, he's going to do that over the summer. And when he's gotten to the Revolutionary War period now, and tell them what you told me about what you're trying to do.
Can y'all hear me? I'm like, I got a voices. So.
Yeah, that's great.
Here's kind of what we have going with kids today is everything's digital and it's instant, history to them is a bunch of old guys out of a book. So I'm changing it this year. I'm putting them in those situations. We're going to role play from day 1 to the very end. They're going to be assigned a role. I designed roles, pulled everything together for my first stuff, and it dawned on me that I was sitting here, wait a minute, every person in here has got a Patriot. y'all already done the work for me. Let me honor your patriot by my kids taking on that role till I'm done. Is kind of what I'm thinking. And when I say what I want is what I'm looking for is basically, who is this person that came over? What did they do before the war? And in the war. And now this 8th grader from the trailer park who does not care. Now all of a sudden, well, I'm Tom Huxell from, Georgia. Now he's got perspective and he's bought it.
Right. So I think I told him to, let's start talking about that. I think we can handle that. We do have, some of us have gone in, well, I know I have, I hope some more of you have gone in and for my patriot, put some history about my patriot, where he was living, what he was doing, what happened to him, and all those sorts of things. And so we have actually some little write-ups that I'm sure at least TL could help us find, right, TL? That we could do that. So probably all we would need, if you have your own write-up, that would be fine. He's looking for things, he told me like, well, what did this person, where did this person live? What was this person doing, and those sorts of things, So sort of a little story, and I'm assuming this, let's tell their story. About a page or something of their story, which is pretty close to what we've got, at least a lot of us are supposed to have done. So I'd like for you to think about it, and Bill's got a great idea I can help.
Actually, 3 patriots that are buried here in Texas. James Moon, Abson, and Thomas Holmes, not Thomas Holmes,
James Carter.
We've got stories already for them, and they're very.
And they're here in the area, so I'll reach out. Anyway, so let's reach out. We'll get together and talk about that. We'll talk about it, and we'll help you. I don't know how many you want. I bet we can fix it right up. Yes, sir.
Probably a clip of that, of what he can do in the class would be beneficial to our members, because if we're providing him that information, then that gives us a bio on that patriot. We can enter into the national system.
Right.
A lot of us have not done that on our patriots.
You have.
So that'd be a plus in both ways.
Yeah. So why don't y'all think about that, and I would hope some of you, I'd like for you to step up and say, yeah, I'd like to do that. Okay, so I want your permission to do that, but and then I know several of them here are already thinking about this things like you, because you got some interest. He's got some interesting ones. So anyway, so that's what it. Again, thank you so much again for your service and what you continue to do for our youth, our next generation here. So thank you, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay. I think that's mine. Yep. Okay. Here you go. Yep.
Next, this evening, there'll be some awards given that have never been given to my knowledge in this chapter in the past 20 years. And our former President General, Honorable Nathan White, is going to present those.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, sir.
As many of you know, probably our most outward activity in the community is our color guard. And we have a number of our members and a number of our members in our district who are active participants in the color guard. And we're here tonight to honor 2 of those members with the Baron von Steuben Color Guard Award and medal. And I got to thinking, well, what do we know about von Steuben? Except it's hard to pronounce. Actually, it's Steuben, but they've anglicized it to Steuben. And so Steuben is where we're going to be tonight. Baron von Steuben was born in 1730. He was a Prussian, and he came to America to assist in the Revolution. He was from a military family, and he joined military at age 17. But he helped the Continental Army in Valley Forge. He created the training manual for the Continental Army. Being a Prussian and having a military background, he was very active in the drills for the Continental Army. He commanded one of the 3 divisions of the Continentals at Yorktown. He served as Inspector General and Major General, and this warms my heart. He was fly officer. All right. I was fly officer in the Navy. He taught we've heard so many times that a lot of our ancestors were just ragtag army, and he taught the military how to reload the muskets quickly, chain and charge with bayonets. He taught how to move in compact columns as opposed to miles long lines. He basically was kind of the military drill instructor for the Continental Army. And the National Society has adopted as the namesake for the Color Guard Award, the highest Color Guard Award, the Baron von Steuben Award. To earn this medal for sustained achievement, that's just sustained achievement in the Color Guard, a Color Guardsman must serve at least 5 years after his application for the Silver Color Guard Medal, and he must participate in at least 25 national and/or district Color Guard events. The 5 years service does not have to be continuous. Color Guardsmen may take more than 5 years to participate in 25 qualifying events, but may not be awarded the National von Steuben Medal earlier than 5 years after his application for the Silver Color Guard Medal for that approval. The same events that count toward earning the Silver Color Guard Medal shall also count toward earning the National von Steuben Medal. A compatriot may receive this medal only once. Hopefully clusters and other ribbon attachments are not authorized. But as I say, we have 2 recipients tonight. Now, John Greer is one of those. And John, are you there?
Muted.
You gotta unmute, John.
All right, very good.
Yes, I am.
John was involved in an automobile accident yesterday, which was not his fault, but it prevents him from being here tonight. But we do have for John and for T.L. Holden, and I'm going to ask T.L. to come forward. This is 2 months in a row we've awarded the medals to T.L. Holden. I'll tell you what.
There's a reason.
Dr. Seligmann, this is T.L. Holden. He's our Brigadier General, and he is an outstanding. Not only is he an outstanding Color Guardsman, but he also Veterans Service medal received last month. This says Terry L. T.L. Holden has been awarded the National von Steuben Medal for sustained achievement in recognition of his sustained service as a Color Guardsman to the National Society, Sons of the American Revolution, signed by our President General C. Bruce Pickett. And accompanying that certificate is also a medal, very nice medal, with a relief from Baron von Steuben on it. So, T.L., I'm delighted to present that to you.
Thank you very much.
It represents a considerable amount of activity with the Color Guard. And John, you're another one that just keeps racking up medals and awards because of your service to the Sons of the American Revolution. And we're delighted that that you survived the crash, that you're not injured significantly. You're not here tonight, but we certainly are glad to present to you the certificate and medal as well. Anybody have any questions? Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got one comment I do want to make.
All right.
Well, really, I got two comments. One, being in the color guard is probably one of the funnest things to do with SAR. You get to meet the public. And probably one of the biggest questions we get is why can't you guys all get in the same uniform? So that opens up a whole lot of discussion of why we could explain to them here in Texas, we're different, number one, because a lot of the SAR chapters on the East Coast, as the doc kind of pointed out, we had 13 colonies. And those 13 colonies all had different uniforms. But when we participate in stuff nowadays, the chapters require that they all look alike. Here in Texas, we've taken a different approach, and we're wearing a uniform representative of our ancestors. So it allows us to further that discussion about why the difference of the uniforms, what our patriots did and participated. And with the youth, as Bill mentioned, it opens up a little bit about history that we get to talk to that doesn't normally get covered in schools. And I will also like to add, Bill Watts is a recipient of the bond student also. Oh, very good. Thank you.
I think John might want to say something.
Well, John.
John, you want to say something?
Yes. No, I appreciate it.
John, thank you.
Tom?
You want to say anything else, John?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Nathan White inducted me into the SAR. He gave me the Patriots Medal, and now he's giving me the Von Steuben Medal.
Right.
My pleasure.
He said, my pleasure. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Let's see, next, laws, prepared the minutes and Carrie posted them for the April meeting. Hopefully y'all have had a chance to review those. Yes, sir. And who made the motion, please? Bill made the motion, Wallace, and second. Okay, and Joe Chenoweth made a second. I guess you had 2 seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. The next, the treasurer's report here.
As of our last meeting, our bank balance was $6,686.35. This month, our expenses were as follows. We had an Eagle Scout award, $200. There were chapter president medals that were ordered for $368. And then there were certificates and a medal at $46.25. This month's income consisted of a donation from Texas Society for, it was basically a reimbursement for ROTC medals for $59. And one that kind of surprised me, we got some money from Amazon Smile, $72.14. So I wasn't going to reject it. Our available bank balance is $6,203.24. Any questions? Thank you.
Everybody smile, let's smile. Group photo. One more. I might remind everybody, if you're smiling, you can look at the minutes online, and remember, we call them minutes plus because we put photographs in. But you might want to look at those and see if you were smiling, or if your eyes were closed, or if you had a stupid look on your face. So you can correct that problem if it needs to be corrected. And reading, you might read them, it puts a lot of work into that. You might read them too, you know.
We've also
So I'm
got,
saying, I'm not saying you don't, but if you don't.
we've also got a YouTube channel too.
Oh, we have a YouTube channel.
Wants to go back.
It's not real. We have to sort of, that's not hard to find.
No, McKinney SAR.
Yeah.
Yeah, the YouTube channel is McKinney SAR.
Yeah.
Plus, right? Does anybody else have?
This, Richard, Bonaparte, if I read correctly, how many applications do you have that are kind of in the work for new members of our chapter?
The chapter's got 13. And these aren't including the ones that are on hold. There's 6 or so that are, there's about 4 that are ready to go now, but there's students moving. And people already going, we've probably got close to 20 that are.
We are continuing to get inquiries and applications for new members, and that's great.
Yes, we've had phenomenal growth, sustained growth, and yeah, Richard's done a great job. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else have any announcements or anything? Yes, sir, Bill.
We have 2 color guard events coming up, Memorial Day. We've got a parade in Denton. We've got a parade in Denton. And then we also have a grave marking in Lake Charles.
Okay, so for the big ones, we do a parade in Denton for Memorial Day, and then a grave marking, did you say?
Denton.
Oh, hold on.
Denison.
Denison parade for Memorial Day, and then a grave marking, where was that?
Lake Charles, Louisiana.
In Lake Charles, Louisiana. And for the grave marking, you know about what date that is?
It's on,
On Memorial Day. Okay, great, thank you. Yes,
And
sir.
we also have the ODL Murphy parade in
Farmersville.
June the 10th.
That's a fun one too.
That is fun.
That is fun.
You get there early when you have breakfast.
Yeah.
For the veterans, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Is that earlier than previous years? Isn't it usually in July?
It's around 7 o'clock.
Yeah, isn't that usually in July? They moved it up or no?
No, it's usually in June. They moved it
Okay.
to the second night.
Okay.
7 to 9 is breakfast. And if you want to stay for lunch, that's at 12 to 1.
But so one other thing. So if anybody in here is toying with the idea of like, you know, what's this color guard like? Maybe I'd like to try it out. Between us around here, we can get you a uniform that you can wear and come participate and just start to understand what the experience is like. Would you say that's true, Bill? I think between us, we'll buy, we have enough, we can put, you know, a uniform or 2 together. Might even borrow one from somebody, maybe.
My first event.
He's got one.
Waistcoat.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with the color guard and immediately started buying.
And,
And but we can supply you with stuff.
yeah, Nathan just said he's got one, he probably would be interested in. Well,
No, it's real cheap.
remember-
Real good meetings.
Okay.
Anything else from the floor? If that, Don, are you still on? Yes, sir. Don, if you could please lead us in the benediction.
Yes. Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
May the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob bless and keep you. And may the Lord grant us nobility of character and compassion for the needy and bind us in fraternal love until we meet again. Amen.
Now, if you'll please join me in the recessional. Till we meet again.
The Bill of Rights and independence, bring forth, and nation free.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Perfect. I enjoyed it. Okay. You got any copy?